All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Katie. I'm going to be presenting Shaping Your Next Normal today. This is meant to be a very interactive workshop, so I hope you guys have your typing fingers ready and you're willing to comment in the chat. We're going to do a couple of exercises and activities together. And the goal of this presentation is to really equip you with some techniques and skills that you can apply in your own life whenever you experience challenging situations. So I'm going to get the PowerPoint pulled up so you guys can follow along. All right, so beautiful. So as I said, today's presentation is called Shaping Your Next Normal, and my name is Katie. All right. So as I was saying, today's presentation is called Shaping Your Next Normal, and the goal of this presentation is to learn how to thrive after experiencing a challenging circumstance. Now, this past year has been a challenging one for all of us, whether your challenges have been COVID related or whether they have been just some of the normal stressors of life that we all experience. And whenever you encounter a challenging situation, your level of functioning tends to drop a bit, and that's okay. You're just in survival mode at that time. You are, maybe just having to handle this increased emotional burden of this emotional distress that you're experiencing. So your energy and your ability to perform in other areas of life may decrease, and that's just fine. After a period of time, your emotional coping skills start to kick in. You start to feel more comfortable handling the situation that you find yourself in, and then you might start working your way on this recovery line back to your baseline level of functioning. Well, our hope is for you today is to show you how to achieve thriving, which is to come not back to your baseline level of functioning, but to come above your baseline level of functioning through the learning and the growth that you may experience after this challenging event. And it's okay if at this moment in time, whatever your life circumstances are, you're not quite there yet. You might still be in survival, or you might just be starting on the path of your recovery line. That's okay. I'm just going to give you some tools to equip you for when you do feel ready to grow and to maybe even rise above your previous level of functioning, that you can apply these strategies to experience growth through challenges. There are 3 techniques that we want to tap into today to achieve this growth through hardship. And those strategies are reframing, savoring, and accepting. So I'm going to briefly describe each strategy for you, and then we're going to do an exercise along with each strategy to help you practice it and take it home as homework. So the first strategy is reframing, and reframing is all about changing the way that you look at something to change the way that you experience it. Because a lot of times, a situation itself is not what causes us emotional distress. It's our interpretation of the experience that causes our emotional distress. So as a group, we're going to utilize that reframing handout that I emailed you guys earlier this morning. So like I said, we're going to start with an example, and then we're going to work through an exercise together to get you guys in the habit of practicing this reframing technique. So as you can see, this handout is labeled the cognitive model because this is a key technique used in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is an empirically validated form of treatment utilized by therapists everywhere. And the basis of CBT and the basis of the worksheet that we're going to be going through right now is the concept that when a situation occurs, the first thing that happens is we have an interpretation of that event. We have a thought about it. So in this example, we have a coworker who you're usually friendly with walked past you in the hallway without saying hello. So in this example, the person responds by thinking, what did I do wrong? Why is she mad at me? So the interpretation of the behavior is the person is mad at me. That's why they didn't say hello. And I must have done something wrong to cause them to be mad at me. So when you're thinking these thoughts, some emotions come up for you. You feel hurt, you feel offended, and as the resulting behavior, you can't stop thinking about what has happened, and later you act coldly towards the coworker. And this is rumination. A lot of times we tend to do this. Our mind gets to get stuck in a pattern where it loops over and over, thinking the same negative thoughts. So in order to break this cycle, we take it back up to the top. From this situation, instead of interpreting your coworker's behavior, which is making an assumption, something we all know does not usually pan out in our favor. So instead of interpreting our coworker's behavior as meaning that they're mad at us and we did something wrong, some alternative interpretations include, my coworker must have a lot on her mind. She didn't even see. When you change the script, when you reframe your understanding of the situation, your feelings about it are completely different. You feel neutral, unfazed, and you don't give it a second thought, and you act warmly towards your coworker as usual. So by reframing your interpretation of this situation, you actually set yourself free to, instead of ruminating over this negative thought pattern all day long, you feel neutral, you feel calm, and you're able to go about your day unconcerned by somebody else's behavior. So this is where the presentation is going to get interactive, because this is a great tool that you can delve into all kinds of insecurities, situations, whether it pertains to, a loved one, a coworker. We're not going to get too personal in this presentation. So as a group, we're going to work through it using an everyday, ordinary circumstance that happens to all of us, being cut off in traffic. So here's where I want you to tap into the chat. So the situation, starting from the top, you're driving to work today and somebody cuts you off. What is your immediate interpretation of the situation? Keep it G, but what are the thoughts that are running through your head? Why did this person cut you off? What a jerk, yeah, definitely. That's rude, exactly. They're in a hurry, definitely. I like how that's a very factual interpretation. It's not like an opinion, it's a very factual interpretation. That's great. Perfect. So, we feel that the person's rude, they're a jerk, etc. That's our interpretation. What are the feelings that we're now experiencing? Go ahead and share in the chat. How do you feel when somebody cuts you off in traffic? If this is kind of the script running through your mind. Frustrated, angry, irritated, yeah, definitely all of the above. And what behaviors might you exhibit in response to feeling this way? How do you act in this situation? Yelling, definitely. Manual gestures, sure. Taking a deep breath, maybe a rude gesture, honking the horn, definitely. Your bad attitude could follow you through the day. Yeah, absolutely. Say something to whoever is in the car with you, definitely. Yeah, I agree with you. I exhibit all of those behaviors as well. And I like how you kind of mirrored the previous example with that rumination. Definitely that negative emotionality can stick with you all day long. When really the person in the car probably didn't intend to make you have a bad day. They probably didn't intend to make you angry or frustrated. So if we take this back up to the top, what are some alternative interpretations or thoughts we might have as to why this person cut you off in traffic? A blind spot. Yep, that definitely could be so. Could have been an emergency, definitely. I like they must be in a hurry. I agree, absolutely. It's a very neutral interpretation. You're not making too many assumptions, but it doesn't put any bias on it. Distracted, yep, it definitely could be distracted while driving. Maybe they've got a baby crying in the back seat. Maybe they just got off of like a 12-hour shift at work. Maybe they worked the overnight shift. Any number of explanations. They didn't notice the street sign or lane closure until the last minute. Definitely, sometimes two lanes merge into one, and we have to show a little charity. So if these are the kind of interpretations that you're now making regarding the person's behavior, freshman, that's coming soon. If these are the interpretations that you're making regarding their behavior, what feelings might you experience in regards to these interpretations we just came up with? You hope they and their family are safe. Yeah, you kind of have that compassionate empathy. Yep, definitely. Compassion, very good. Grace, understanding, absolutely. Yeah, that would definitely be a good perspective shift if we remember the times that we've been guilty of the same behavior. Remembering when speed was everything. Yeah. And in response to these emotions, what might your behavior be at the end of this chain of events? Yeah, they might be. Deep breath and let it go. That's a great coping skill. Deep breath and stay focused on the road. You guys are on the same page. Keep driving. Don't worry about it. Absolutely. Don't give it a second thought. Don't waste your emotional energy on it. Drive more. Oh, wow. I like that. That's a good application. Drive more cautiously. Do you guys feel like that this might be a helpful resource to utilize in your daily lives? Even if you don't use the worksheet, yeah, Ashley, agreed. Even if you don't use the worksheet, it's something you can do in your own head. Maybe my partner didn't take out the trash. And my initial reaction is, they never take out the trash. They never listen to me. I'm so frustrated. And then you're short with them and you're ruminating and you're stewing on it. And instead, in that moment, if I remember this technique, I might take a step back and say, okay, my roommate or partner or whomever didn't take out the trash. What are some alternative interpretations of the situation? Maybe they had a really stressful day at work and they're exhausted and they're going to get to it later. Maybe they just forgot, but they'd be happy to do it if I give them a reminder. All kind of ways that we can take a deep breath. And really at the end of the day, we're the ones benefiting from it because we're the ones that are freeing ourselves from ruminating and stewing in our negative emotions. After this presentation, I'm going to send you a handout with some more worksheets that might be helpful, as well as some articles and resources. We don't have time to do every single one of them right now, but I just wanted to show you a couple of them. So this next one is about thinking errors. And this is something that came up in the chat, as well as in my example about taking out the garbage. He never takes out the trash. He never listens to me, et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of thinking errors or cognitive distortions that we tend to engage in with our thoughts. Sometimes we engage in this all or nothing thinking that you can see here on the first line of the worksheet. So, instead of realizing that, the world is black and white, it's, oh, you always this, or you never do that. Sometimes we can show bias where when somebody else does a negative behavior, we attribute it to their character, oh, they're just rude. But when we make a mistake, we give ourselves a positive bias. We're like, oh, I didn't know, etc. Another example would be internalizing. And so in the example on the last worksheet of the coworker, the individual immediately internalized it. Oh, she's mad at me. I must have done something to make her mad, instead of thinking, oh, maybe she had a hard morning. Maybe she didn't sleep well last night. So there are a lot of different thinking errors, cognitive distortions out there. If you Google it, you'll see a ton. This is also kind of in the realm of cognitive behavioral therapy. But this is a worksheet if you'd like to utilize it on your own. It gives these great balanced thoughts right here, where you take the thinking error and then you challenge it with a more balanced thought. So in this example, this always happens, or geez, I never get this right. A balanced thought would be, it didn't go right this time, but what I know for next time is, so that's a handy tool for reframing, which is what we're talking about here, as well as Socratic questions. Again, Socratic questions is about challenging a thought that you're having and asking yourself, is this thought in line with reality? Is there any evidence to support this thought? What is the probability of this happening? What's the worst case scenario if this does happen? I was nervous getting ready for this presentation today, and then I said to myself, if I bomb it, what's the worst thing that's gonna happen? And I was like, nothing. So Socratic questions can be a great way to go back to step one of reframing, which is changing or challenging the thought that you're having. So hopefully those are helpful for you. We will, I'll send them out after the presentation's over. So let's get back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so reframing was technique number 1 for finding a silver lining in a challenging situation, changing the way you look at something to change your experience of it. Next up is savoring. So savoring is the act of mindfully attending to the experience of pleasure. You can actually enhance, increase, and extend the amount of pleasure you experience around a specific event by focusing on it, fantasizing about it, or dwelling on it. Now, savoring may seem kind of like a nebulous concept to you, hard to pin down with a specific word. That's because it's a combination of several different things. Savoring is a combination of gratitude, awe, and mindfulness. So those may be positive coping skills that you have heard of before, and each one could have a presentation of its own. But just to give you some brief examples, gratitude. Research shows that if you take even just, a couple minutes a day to write down or verbally communicate to another person, or even to just think about 3 positive things that happened in your day, it can yield the same improvement in mood as taking antidepressants and having an increase in positive emotionality for up to 6 months or a year after participating in this gratitude practice. Not to say not to take your antidepressants if you're prescribed, but just to say that gratitude can be a very powerful tool. And so we're going to practice a savoring exercise in a minute to help you blend gratitude, awe, and mindfulness all at the same time. But I wanted to give you just a little bit more information about savoring first. As you can see on the PowerPoint, savoring can involve a past, a present, or a future component. So if you're practicing past-focused savoring, that's going to be called reminiscing. And so the goal is to look back on a positive event to rekindle positive emotions. And so you're kind of extending the life of the positive emotionality that you experienced around a certain event by tapping into it in the present. Present-focused savoring is more like mindfulness. And so the key to present-focused savoring is greater awareness, to be paying attention to your surroundings and to practice gratitude towards the things that you noticed. So when you're eating a meal, you can practice savoring, pay attention to the smells, pay attention to the tastes, pay attention to the textures, and really just practice mindfulness and gratitude in the present moment. And that savoring really can be practiced on little things to big things. It could be something as simple as a sip of water and having a moment of gratitude in your mind for access to clean water all day long. Or it could be for something big like a vacation or a promotion. So savoring can be applied to the small things and the big things. Additionally, as noted, savoring can apply to external events or to internal realities. So whether you're savoring an external event that's occurring, such as hanging out with a friend or a vacation, or whether it's an internal emotional state that you're really paying attention to, engaging with, and savoring. So, and then additionally, savoring can be future focused, which is called anticipation. So something that you may be looking forward to, such as meeting up with a friend, going on a trip, the weekend, anything like that. You can increase your enjoyment of it by beginning your enjoyment in the present, really, and taking the opportunity to look forward to it and engage with it. A few tips for practicing savoring include sharing your good feelings with others. So a lot of times when you verbalize your gratitude, your awe, and the things that you're noticing, it helps to have a greater impact than if you just think it in your mind. So sharing it out loud with another person can be really positive. You can also think of it as taking a mental photograph of a particular moment in time. So if you're wanting to work on paying attention and practicing mindfulness in the present, imagine that you're taking a mental photograph of the present moment and each detail that you want to remember about it. So we're going to take a moment to practice a savoring activity now. And I'm going to invite you to close your eyes while engaging in this activity, because the stage of this activity is your mind, and you don't want to be distracted by your surroundings, by, the knickknacks around your office, paperwork, computer screens. So I invite you to close your eyes to practice this activity. And what we're going to do is we're going to practice savoring as pertains to your favorite season of year. So closing your eyes, take a moment to reflect on what is your favorite season of the year, and think about why it is your favorite season of the year, what it is about it that you enjoy so much. Are there specific activities, holidays, or events that occur during that time of year that you really enjoy? Take a moment to just pick one and put yourself in that time and place, maybe remembering a particularly amazing activity or event that you've engaged in during your favorite season of the year. And now that you're picturing that event, let's hone in on some details. Think about the sounds. What do you hear during that time of year? Is it the crunching of leaves underfoot? Is it the sound of waves crashing up on the beach? Is it the sound of children laughing? What are the sounds associated with your favorite time of year? What about the sights of your favorite time of year? Are there particular colors going on? How does nature look at that time? What people might you see at that time of year? Think about the tastes and smells of that time of year. Are there any particular foods that you associate with that time of year? Any particular flavors? Any smells of nature? Can you smell the beach? Is it snow cones? And once you feel like you've got a pretty good picture of that time of year, take a moment to give gratitude for it. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. Winter and cool weather, feel the cool weather and smell spices. Yeah, so I'm glad you guys seem to enjoy that savoring activity. As you see, it doesn't need any equipment at all, no paper, no pens, no nothing. And it's even something that you could do at work or at home if you ever find yourself getting frustrated. This is just a quick mental vacation almost that you can take to kind of reframe your mind and get some positive thoughts flowing in there. All right, so that was savoring. We have one more strategy left, which is accepting. So acceptance is about experiencing events fully and without defense as they are. The goal of acceptance is not to change the experience, but to receive it without trying to control it. So some of you are probably familiar with the Serenity Prayer, which talks about the courage to change the things that you can change, the serenity to accept the things that you cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. And of course, there are caveats with acceptance. We don't want you to accept a situation which is harmful or toxic to you, or to allow individuals in your life that are toxic or harmful. The key to acceptance is more to break the cycle of banging your head against the wall over and over and over against a certain circumstance. Other people's behaviors are something that we don't have the ability to control. And so if you find yourself continuously coming up against a wall, trying to change something that can't change, acceptance is the option or the invitation to change your approach, accept reality for what it is, and experience an emotional release and freedom as you're no longer at war with the reality that you're experiencing. The neat thing about acceptance is that you can apply it to your circumstances, but you can also apply it to your emotional internal state. So we just spoke for a second about your circumstances and about the option of accepting it instead of trying to battle against it. And then as far as your own emotions go, the key is to experience them without judgment. So not to label an emotion as good or bad, or not to label yourself as good, bad, any other kind of descriptive word based on the emotions that you're feeling, because emotions are temporary and they come and they go and they are not you. They don't define you and they're not a reflection of you or your personality. So the exercise that we're going to do in a minute for practicing acceptance is about finding that space and distance from your emotions to be able to realize that they come and they go, and you're free to experience them, but you're also free to let them go if they're not serving a positive purpose in your life anymore. So if you guys are ready, we're going to try this emotional acceptance exercise. So this exercise, like the last one, is going to work best if you can close your eyes and get into your internal mind space. The goal of this exercise is to tap into a challenging emotion you may have experienced recently, maybe even today. Maybe there were some hangups with traffic. Maybe there was something at work that came up that didn't exactly go your way. Maybe it was somebody in your life causing a delay, a drama. So the goal right now, keeping your eyes closed, is to pick that moment, pick that situation that may have gotten some feelings rising up in you, and hone in on the emotion that you were feeling at that time. We don't want it to be too intense. This doesn't have to be anything major, but just some emotional discomfort you may have experienced sometime recently. And after you've got a feel for the situation, you're kind of tapping back into that emotion. When you're ready, imagine taking that emotion, taking it out of your body and setting it down in front of you, about 3 to 5 feet where you can look at it. Take it out of yourself and set it out somewhere where you can observe it. As you're looking at this emotion, what color is it to you? Does it have a shape? What about movement? Is it moving in any kind of way? What about size? How big is it to you? After you've got a pretty good feel for what it looks like, color, movement, shape, size, you can try giving a name to it if one comes to mind. Think of what you might call it. You're still observing it. It's out there in front of you. It's not inside of you. You're looking at it as an outside observer, outside perspective. And once you feel ready, you have a choice. You can take that emotion and you can put it back inside of yourself to keep it with you. Or you can leave it out there, open your eyes and walk away. It's up to you. And give you a couple minutes to make your choice. Looking at it, weighing your options, to take it back or to leave it be and walk away. It's up to you. All right, once you've made your choice, feel free to open your eyes whenever is a good time for you. No rush. Okay, so Natasha shares fear, which was a black blob about the size of a basketball, and she left it on the table. That's very poignant. I can feel that. Margie has something called Frank with dark grays with black streaks, large and misshapen. She left it behind and dusted it off. Definitely, that feels like a potent emotion. Kamisha's was called belittling. It was conical with a sharp point, lime green and glowing. She left it on the table. Wow, you guys are really good at this. I'm learning a lot. Jennifer's was called sadness, confusion, or frustration. It was a muted yellow, a sphere in the corner. She left it there. Yeah, that's really interesting. It was kind of hiding off in the corner, and then you were able to set it completely aside, not just off in the corner where it was kind of niggling in the back of your mind. Crystal's was called Confusion, gray with black and white, large, like a big blob with jagged edges. She left it away from her. I agree. I usually don't bring the emotion back inside of me when I'm done with this activity either. What I love about this exercise is that I'm more of a thinker person than a feeler person. This kind of thing is not my usual forte, but from the very first time that I tried it, I found it to be effective and something that I was capable of doing. So hopefully all of you guys feel too that even if, you know, mindfulness or meditation or any of this thing is not your usual forte, hopefully you feel that it was bite-sized and easy enough to apply if you wanted to. Feel free to keep entering in the chat if anybody else has anything else to share. I'm going to keep moving forward for us, just mindful of time. Okay, oh, CJ just shared anger, frustration, red, orange, yellow with writhing tentacles. That is very intimidating. Okay, so if you take a peek, the next concept is post-traumatic growth. And this is the goal that we're working towards. The concept was coined by psychologists Dr. Richard Tedeschi and Dr. Lawrence Calhoun at UNC Charlotte in the mid-1990s. And the premise is that after experiencing adversity, you can experience positive growth. Dr. Tedeschi's quote states, "People develop new understandings of themselves, the world they live in, how to relate to other people, the kind of future they might have, and a better understanding of how to live life." So that quote leads us into the 5 points that you can see here. Some of the fruit of post-traumatic growth include a greater appreciation for life, closer social relationships, personal growth, spiritual learning, and new possibilities. And we're about to launch into the final activity of this workshop. It is the handout called SYNN, Shaping Your Next Normal, which I sent via email before the webinar, but in case anyone was not able to get that email, I'm going to share it via the chat right now. Okay. All right, I just shared it via the chat, and this worksheet is fillable, meaning that if you didn't print it out and it's on your computer, you can just type in your answers to each of the boxes. So we'll start doing that in a second. But I just wanted to reiterate something that we mentioned earlier, which is that it's okay if looking back on the past year or looking at your current circumstances or however long you feel like you've been in a rough spot. It's okay if you don't feel like you're here yet. It's okay if you're still more in the surviving portion or the recovery portion and not quite ready for the thriving. But I think that as we go through this guided reflection that we're about to do, that you're going to discover some growth that you've experienced through adversity that you weren't even aware that you had. Sometimes it's in hindsight that we're able to see things that we don't see in the present moment. So we're going to be looking for growth, be it small, be it big, and we're going to do it together. So go ahead and grab your worksheet. Feel free to fill in your worksheet, and then any bits that you want to share in the chat, feel free. But I definitely am prioritizing you guys being able to write it down for yourselves so that this is something that you can have afterwards, showing you some of the growth that you've experienced through the past year. So that would be my recommendation. Focus in on growth that you've experienced roughly over the last year or so. But if you have any particular extenuating circumstances in mind in your own life, feel free to reference that as well. So the first area that we're going to take a look at is appreciation. And this is tied in with the savoring that we were mentioning earlier, gratitude, awe, and mindfulness all wrapped into one. And I've given you some ideas, some topics that might get you on a path to write down things that you're appreciative for. But this is your worksheet, so take it whatever direction you like. Remembering to jot down small things, big things, medium things, things that have happened over the past year, things that have happened today. And even things that are new or a change in your life. Maybe over the course of the pandemic, there were a lot of negatives, but maybe there were also some positive changes that you've appreciated. Maybe more time with family, maybe you've been able to spend more time in nature, maybe you've read more books. So anything along those lines, go ahead and start jotting down some appreciation on your worksheet or sharing in the chat. We're going to have a couple minutes for each of the 5 areas of this worksheet. Next up, social relationships. So right now, we're going to tap into any social relationships that may have flourished over the past year. So take a moment to focus on some relationships that have stood out to you during the past year and let yourself be grateful for time with them. If this is an area that you feel you're struggling with, or you find it hard to bring someone to mind, or you're recalling this topic with some pain, take a moment to acknowledge those feelings and recall your tools. About being flexible with the tribes that we've created over the past year, even if they're virtually instead of in person. Getting closer to family members. Christy has a weekly Zoom call with parents, brother, wife, and kids, which is more than she's talked with them in the past. That's terrific, yeah. Yeah, sometimes we tend to view the world as all black and white, good and bad, but there have definitely been some challenges over the past year, but you're also identifying some positives that have come out of it as well, which is not to downplay any of the challenging circumstances. It's merely an option, if we would like to, that we can dwell on or meditate on some of the positives for a moment and take a break from dwelling on the negatives. It's an option. It's always a personal choice, never required. All right, I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to move on to the next topic in the guided reflection, while also still sharing in the chat. The next area of post-traumatic growth that you may have experienced is personal growth. And this could take the form of small changes or big changes. It might appear as a hobby that you'd always wanted to take up but never did. It might be a habit that you had been hoping to develop, a new healthy habit that you incorporated into your life. It might be an aspect of your personality or your character that you were hoping to work on. Maybe you've started reading more. Any of these different examples would apply, and now's a great chance to reflect and jot down any ways that you've grown through what you've been through roughly the last year. I'm going to move us on to spiritual learning. And I just want to show you all briefly how this applies to everyone before you get down to jotting down ideas. Spiritual growth is not necessarily connected with a particular set of beliefs or religious affiliation unless you have one. But the view of spiritual learning is connecting with what matters to you or to what brings value to your life. So whether that involves experiencing nature, practicing yoga or meditation, connecting with your preferred religious practices, or a shift in your own inner life or beliefs. These are all examples of how you may have strengthened your spiritual practices through the challenges that you've been through. And let me move us on to our final prompt, which is new possibilities. So I want you to reflect on any new possibilities that may have opened up to you over the past year. Think back through all of your reflections and consider what you have learned today and throughout the past year. What is it that you want to keep in mind as you start stepping into your next normal? How do you want to move forward? So this is kind of your action-oriented step. Maybe figuring out some tools or practices that you'd like to take forward as you continue with this season and the next season. So I wanted to leave you with a thought. What will you bring into your next normal? We've got a few inspirational quotes here. Only in the darkness can you see the stars. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. And we are the silver lining in any and every dark cloud we could ever find. There is no need to go looking for the light when you bring it with you.